everybody. This is Joy, Shout for Joy Quilter, and I am bringing you Clue 1 from the Doodad Mystery Quilt, our Fall 2023 Mystery Quilt. I'm excited to show you today's clue. You'll find the PDF in the Facebook group, so check it out there. It will only be available until December. Sometime in December, I will be taking all the clues down. So you don't have a lot of time, but enough to get this done. Again, it's not a super hard quilt, and I'll walk you through the steps. So if you're a beginner, you might want to watch all the videos for all the tips and tricks. If you know what you're doing, you can probably just print off the printout and work from there. I'm not doing any super tricky things this time. I am going to show you Clue 1. Here are all my pieces. This is what I do with a mystery quilt. In fact, I do it a lot of times. I'll put my pieces in a bag. I label it. Now I could write on the plastic, the white plastic part on my zip bag, but if I just put a piece of paper in there with a clue number or the part number or the block, whatever it is, then I can throw that away and use the bag again a second time. I'm kind of on the frugal side that way. So, Clue 1. Okay. So, these are the squares, the medium-sized squares that we cut, and I've paired them up as shown in your clue. You've got the darks and the mediums, and the darks and the lights, and the mediums and the lights. And what we'll do is, for each pair, we'll take the lighter fabric from the pair, and we're going to I'm showing you some of my fabrics. I use the back side because I like the back side better. That one's a shiny fabric, and I didn't like the shine on my front, so it's upside down. Okay, so I'm going to mark my center line. I'm making half square triangles, and if you know how to do half square triangles, you could probably jump ahead. Yeah, I overshot my line, so I'm going to have to kind of sew on either side and do the dot to dot thing. You can also use this tool, line up that center, and then mark on either side because it's a 1/2 inch wide tool. And if I mark on both sides, then I'm going to be marking my stitching line rather than my center line. I could mark my center line as well. I usually only mark the center line because I trust my 1/4 inch. So those are my sewn lines. And if you do not have the quick quarter ruler, you can use your basic whatever ruler, just a straight ruler. Point to point, draw your line. That's your center line. And I'll sew on either side. Now you can also mark your quarters by finding the 1/4 inch line on your ruler and line the points up with that 1/4 inch line. And then mark your line, turn it around, and you'll do the other side. So you don't have to have the handy dandy tool. I just find the tool is easy to line up. Easier than grabbing my ruler and trying to remember where my 1/4 inch line is. I do know some rulers really mark the 1/4 inch line well, but I'm used to the quick quarter. So there we go. We will take it to the machine. We'll pair it right sides together. Of course, we marked on the back side. Right sides together, and we'll sew on either side of the line. If you need to pin. I totally didn't pin. I trust my fingers, I guess. Sorry about the how bright the the filming is. I've got some spots where the filming is going to be dark and some that's light. I was trying to get ready for two different things while I was filming, so my brain was in two different places. Really not fun. So you know how to do this. Follow that line. And then I put the next one in. Now, this one here, again, right sides together. This one here, I have the line on either side. And if I'm going to cheat, I'm going to cheat a little bit on the inside of my marked line. That way I get that scant quarter that they always talk about in your patterns. And yeah, your purple thing is your friend for these crumb blocks, because sometimes your foot wants to catch on those extra seams that are in the back. And so your purple thing is skinny and with that little tip, it's just easy to get in there and make sure that your seam is going in the correct way. Pretty important to do that. We've added bulk by using crumb blocks, so we want to try to make those seams lay as flat as possible. And so again, that purple thing, it's a whole lot skinnier than my fingers. So that is why I did that. I use my purple thing. I try to keep one really handy at all times. Okay. Get that out of there. And I have these two, and yes, it's not the most straight line, but it's still going to be okay. So once I get them sewn, I'm going to cut down the middle, and I'm going to do that with all of my blocks. Now that one, yeah, you can use your rotary cutter, you can use scissors. It really doesn't matter. I found my rotary cutter with these crumb blocks is a little bit better. Maybe it's just that I have dressmaking shears instead of my normal ones. Now this one, crumb blocks, especially one that's double crumb, I really want to use my rotary cutter. Then I'm going to take them and I'm going to press toward the darker fabric if it has no crumbs. So I'm using a constant for my dark fabric, and so there I go. Again, do not steamroller. That is a bias seam, so I want to be gentle as I press that. I set the seam first, and then I gently press. And you see, I'm picking my iron up as I work my way down. It's always an up and down motion. If you've got a clapper, put it on there. It helps hold the heat, helps keep that press really nice. Usually I leave it for a lot longer than that. And I will definitely be using it on the crumb blocks. When they're crumb on both sides, set that seam, which I don't always remember to do. Now, I can press to one side if I want, but what happens is sometimes you've got seams coming together all in that center, and it really fights. You definitely want to use a clapper if you're pressing to one side. But what I did for most of mine is I used a strip stick. It's a wonderful thing. It's a mini ham for those of you who've done garment sewing. And I put my half square unit there on top. I'm going to open it up. Usually I have my purple thing there, and it wasn't by my iron to hold that open. So try not to burn your fingers as you do that. But open that up and you press. That strip stick just helps you over press the seam. And I know over pressing sounds terrible, but you're just going beyond flat. And that is helpful in making sure that that seam stays open, especially when you've got those seams all coming together on that center seam there. And then I flip it over and I kind of rock my iron. I just place it down and I rock my iron. And that again, it's over pressing it, but now it's laying flat. If I didn't do that, if I just pressed it open on a flat surface, it would try to bow back in. So after I have them all pressed, of course, I'm going to trim them. Most of us have a square ruler, so I need to mark them. I like to mark my ruler with those GE Designs stickers, and I line up that diagonal line with my seam. I am especially careful to have it lined up at the 1/4 inch mark on either end. If the middle is bowed a little bit, the human eye will make it straight. Yep, once I've cut it, I can line up on my cut line, or I can line my cut line up with my measurement. And then trim, sorry about the arm across the way. And there we go. So I'll be trimming all the blocks. Another way you could trim them, and I really like to use the Stripology rulers. This is the Stripology Mini. It has the markings for the size I need. And I've put my GE Design stickers on there, and I know where my spot is. It's a white square, so I'm going to use the white diagonal lines. There's also black squares, and then you use the black diagonal lines. So I've lined it up. Trim one side, trim the other side. Take off my dog ears. Sometimes you're only trimming dog ears. This is definitely sliver trimming. Turn it just part way around, line up your diagonal, and you should be able to line things up on the other line, the horizontal lines. I know they look like vertical lines in this video, but the ruler needed to go with the way the camera was going. So that is the Stripology Mini. Okay, we've got the half square triangles done. Now we're going to move on, and we're going to make some hourglass units. So I'm going to start with those large squares, and I'm just going to use my lights. I'm going to mark. I do not have the big quick 1/4 ruler. I have had it a couple times. I keep breaking them. So this time I just pulled out my ruler and made a line corner to corner, as seen here. And we'll keep going. Just mark them both. And you'll be sewing them. Yes, my dog. My son is getting home from work and she hears him, so she's barking. So there we go. We'll match those up with the dark squares, and we're going to sew them like we sew the half square triangles. Pretty simple. Right sides together. I am going to pin these. They're a little big, and I really don't want them to slide around too much. I'm going to pin out a ways so I don't have to take my pins out, because if they're out beyond my seam, then they're going to hold my fabric together and I don't have to move them as I come to them. So again, I'm going to line up my edge and follow that drawn line. I know you can't see it as well as I can because of the brightness of the light. And I'll be honest, I have the light set at 50% on my sewing machine. I can turn it off, but then it's way too dark for you to see. So I guess I need to play a bit more with my lighting situation. So there you go. Go down one side, flip it around. I generally don't cut the thread. Just take that purple thing, hold the thread behind as I line it up so it doesn't pull in and make a thread goober, a thread nest on the back of my piece. Nobody wants to deal with that thread goober, a thread nest. Lots of names. Yeah, there's my pin out up there on the side. Now I'm going to come down here, and I've got a spot where my seam is flipped. And so I'm going to have to try to keep that flat, going toward my foot. And it still caught a little bit. But that's what that pointy point is for. I don't sew through my finger if I'm using my purple fang. I know other people use stilettos. And I've got at least one stiletto, but I like my purple fang the most. I have them in more than one color because now they come in more than one color. Pretty cool. So I'll do both of those. Then I'm going to cut them in half. Again, sorry for the poor lighting today. Not sure. Well, basically I know I have a light unplugged, and that would be the one that would take care of some of those shadows that we're dealing with over there. Okay, so both of those, and then you'll just cut up the center between the seams as before. And I didn't bring my cutting mat over at this point, so yeah. So it was faster to grab my ruler, to grab my shears and cut in between. And again, after they're cut, we need to take them over to the ironing station, and we will press these to the dark, because again, I'm using a constant dark, so I don't have crumb blocks for my dark. If I were using crumb blocks for my dark, I would be pressing this seam open. I want to really emphasize that you want to make this a scant 1/4 inch on these units, because otherwise, if you have a personal 1/4 inch that's rather large, when you have the crumbs in there, they take up more space in your seam allowance. So make sure that you are really going with a scant 1/4. Oh, I have lost my video. This is not good. Well, this is the point where I take my big half square triangles over to the desk, and I make a line perpendicular to the seam on 2 of those half square triangles. I'm sorry about the lost video here. So I'm just gonna come back here. So what I do, try to find something that looks similar. Okay. And then I'll try to find, hopefully I haven't lost the rest of my video. So I make my line perpendicular, totally opposite on my half square triangle units that I've made. And so I'll take the one that's marked and one that's not marked, and I'm going to put them together. When I put them together, I'm going to make sure that the dark is on top of the light and the light is on top of the dark. I'm going to line them up, and I'm going to feel that center. You can nest those two right there in the center. And that's where I'm going to pin. I'm going to put a pin through those seams. I'm going to catch the seam on the front, and I'm going to catch the seam on the back. So I'll be putting those pins at an angle on either side of my drawn line. I'll try to bump it a little out so I don't have to undo them. Now, if my outside here isn't perfect, I'm okay with that. I really want to have these match as best I can, and then I'll adjust my outside. So let's see if I can go back here. Oh, I went all the way back to the beginning. So here we go. Oh, we did it. We did it. Somewhere in there I lost my stuff. Now I've sewn on either side of that perpendicular line, taken my pins out, and now I'm going to cut the other direction, or cut in between my seams. There we go. And I used a white chalk marker to mark my black, and I used my pencil to mark my light, or my dark and light. Now I'm going to take it to the iron, and I'm going to press to set that seam, and then I'm going to twirl my seams. Now that side is on top of that side. So my light is on top of my dark. I'm going to put my fingers just past the seam and pull the top toward me and push the bottom away so that I can get that twisted seam. And there we go. I'm going to press toward on this one it's toward the light. Now, if I were to do this again, if we have these units in another place, I might press them open, because those crumb blocks, it's really bulky trying to press it to the side. Even with my strip stick, it's really hard to get that seam nice and flat. So I might even take them out and re-press them. I don't know. I've already finished these blocks. So there you go. Press. And again, I'll do it from the other side. No, maybe not. Yeah, from both sides. Now you want to press from the front to make sure you don't have any tucks. Look at how pretty that center is. It came together so well. Now I'm going to show you what happens when you do this method. The light is on the other side, but it's still on top. So I'm still pulling the light toward me and pushing the dark away. And I'm going to get that same look. It's just it's spinning in the other direction. So don't be confused. Don't think that you always have to pull the right towards you and push the left away. It's always which one is on top when you look at it. So sometimes it's going to be on the right and sometimes it's going to be on the left. But look at that cute little four patch you get in the middle. And look at how nice the center came together. So again, I'm going to press from the front, making sure that I do not have any tucks in my seam. So just be gentle. I've got one spot there that it's slightly tucked, and it is not going to go flat. I'm just going to have to live with it. I'll tell my long armer, who is me, to be careful in that spot, because I don't want to catch my foot in that spot. Maybe I'll just quilt it with. Oh, I've lost another section. Oh no. Okie dokie. Oh, if I've lost the other section there, we are doing the same thing, trimming the blocks. You can use a square if you have a square big enough. I used my Stripology squared. Again, I marked the slots that I was going to need. I lined up my diagonal lines. Now this time I have diagonal lines both directions. So when I line that up, I can line the lines on the ruler up with the corners of my hourglass unit. Now it does have a center here, and I kind of get it there, and then I make sure that out here, out in these spots, that's where it matches. If I'm off in the center, there's no reference for anything else on whether it's smack dab in the middle or not. Out here, where I have the seam and it's going to go into another seam, that's where people will notice if it's off a lot. So I'm not going to worry as much about my center as I am about, I'm backwards. So it's more important that this spot here matches. So that was clue one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take all these units that I made and I'm going to put them right back in the clue one bag, along with all of these units that we haven't used yet. But I wanted them cut now. So they're ready when we need them, and they'll be where I can find them, because I will put them all in my clue one bag. So, good way to keep things organized. If you were to see my quilt cave right now, it is not very well organized. I was at the AQS show in Grand Rapids last week for 4 days. So I dropped my purchases here and there in the room. I have a pile of my light and a pile of my medium scraps that I still am making chunks of for clues in the future. And I've got 3 quilts in a pile that need to be bound. You get the idea. I've got a mess. So I hope that your clue one goes fairly smoothly. I will have the the file in the PDF in the files. And again, they will only be there until sometime in December. So if you want to do this quilt, but can't do it today or right now, then save the PDFs so that you have them when you want to make the quilt. I look forward to seeing your projects as they come together in the group. I know I've been enjoying seeing your crumb blocks as you've been sewing and cutting them. It's nice to see the colors that you choose. And it just makes my heart happy to see others sewing along with me through this mystery quilt. So I will see you next week around the same time. It'll be Tuesday. That's all I can say. See you later.